So good morning to so many. I would normally welcome each guest individually. There's just far too many of you this morning. So welcome to everybody to the Bowmanville Rotary Club. It is our January 11th meeting. Rachel, I'm going to ask you to do our invocation this morning.
You betcha. Here we go. Help us look to the past with gratitude and to the future with hope. We remember this day those who have gone before us, who have labored not for themselves alone, but with a vision of building a future for a better world than they had known. Inspire us also like a vision that we may labor for things beyond ourselves, that our lives may be dedicated to a high purpose and grand horizons. Make us unafraid of hopes and dreams, release us from cynicism and despair, and teach us to be realistic about our limitations, but never lose hope in our potential to transcend them.
Thank you very much, Rachel. We'd like to acknowledge that here in Bowmanville, we are on the territory covered by the Williams Treaty, and that this land is the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We offer our gratitude to Indigenous peoples for their care of the land and their teachings about our earth. I am now going to, again, welcome Dr. Bogosh. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think there's this many people here for me. Pretty sure you're the draw this morning. So thank you very much for taking time out of your exceedingly busy schedule to join us. I'm going to turn this over to Joe. So Joe, I'll put that over to you.
These days, when you ask somebody how they are, somewhere in that question is something implicit about COVID, and people answer, well, I'm still okay, or I'm okay considering. There's always that kind of underlying thing. The Omicron variant has meant that we all know someone who has COVID if we haven't had it ourselves. And we all worry about it, and for me, my main concern is that my mother is in a long-term care home. She doesn't have COVID yet, but I'm concerned for her safety and what would happen to her if she does. So there are so many questions about COVID. As Amy said, thank you all for joining us. Dr. Bogosh, I'm sure you've seen him if you follow the news. Radio, TV, print, wherever. You can find him in many, many places. He is, I hope I get this right, an infectious diseases physician at the University Health Network in Toronto, go-to expert in many, many media. And thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bogosh, this morning.
Thanks for having me here. Great to see everybody. Big hello to Bowmanville and other surrounding areas that have joined in. Believe I'm supposed to chat for about 5, 6, 7 minutes or so, just a quick update on Omicron, and then of course happy to chat and take questions for about a half hour or so in total. Hope everyone's doing well. I know it's no one really wanted to be here where we are in January of 2022, still dealing with this 2 years later. I know it's extremely challenging. Obviously, you can't stick our head in the sand and just pretend the problem has gone away. We've got to address the current issue head on. The virus, of course, continues to change. We had the original virus that emerged from China. Then we had a different variant called the Alpha variant, which, wow, I mean, that was our third wave in the spring of 2021, which was extremely challenging. Then it changed into a Delta variant where, depending on where you are in the country, you either had a pretty nasty time, Alberta and Saskatchewan in September, or in Ontario, we didn't really have a bad Delta wave. That was our fall, which was a bump, but it wasn't terrible whatsoever. I mean, we had a very slow and methodical reopening, and we had some public health measures as well. But then Omicron came around, and of course, this is a very, very transmissible variant, like really, really transmissible. And of course, it chips away at some of the protective immunity that we would get from the vaccines or from our prior infections and recovery from prior infections. And it really causes much more significant reinfection. And that's been a huge problem. And you might hear, oh, you know what? It's mild. It's mild. Look at this place. Look at that place. No, it's not mild. It's milder compared to the Delta variant, which can cause a pretty significant illness. But that doesn't mean it's mild. And the proof is in the pudding, right? Look at, we've never had this many people in hospital with COVID in Ontario before. Like, there's just tons and tons of people coming into hospital. So I think we have to be very careful with the words. Some people might hear it's mild, I don't need to get vaccinated. No, it's milder, and the technical term is less virulent than Delta. That's probably true, but it doesn't mean that it can't cause bad illness. Of course it can, and we're seeing it happen. Who does it cause nasty illness in? I mean, again, love and respect to everybody, but it's primarily people who remain unvaccinated. That's who gets infected more frequently, and that's who gets sicker more frequently, and that's unfortunately who lands in hospital and who dies more frequently. So, you know, hospitalization, severe outcomes are essentially, you know, vaccine preventable. Yes, of course, you can still get 1, 2, 3 doses of a vaccine and still get an Omicron infection. Yes, of course, you can get 1, 2, and 3 doses of the vaccine and still land in hospital. Of course, that can happen. It's just way less common in those who are vaccinated versus those who are unvaccinated. So, you know, vaccines, you know, there's lots of different steps to protect yourself from getting this infection, you know, masking, smaller gatherings, you know, better ventilated indoor settings. We've talked about this time and time again, but vaccination at an individual level is still probably the most powerful thing you can do to prevent yourself from getting really sick. And I hope people who are listening are vaccinated, and if they're not, you know, it's never too late. There's no shame, right? Like, some people feel embarrassed to go out, oh, I haven't been vaccinated yet. Like, who cares? Nobody cares. Most people in medicine are pretty supportive, despite what you might see in the media, or if you're on social media, you see all these terrible polarized views. Like, that's garbage. Most people are pretty relaxed, pretty open-minded, and are just here to help. So if you haven't been vaccinated yet, or if you know someone who hasn't been vaccinated yet, you know, it's a wonderful time just to have a chat and to really reconsider, because there's a lot of Omicron out there, and you know what, it's not nice to say, but we're all going to get exposed at some point. Might not be this week, might not be this month, might not be in the next 6 months, might not be this year, but like, COVID's not going anywhere. It's going to be around for a long time. Maybe it won't impact our society as significantly as it has in the past, but it's not going to disappear. And the best thing you can do to really protect yourself from getting really ill is getting vaccinated, and of course having those around you vaccinated as well. So yeah, lots about the vaccine, a little bit about Omicron. One other thing before I'll stop, you know, people want to know, okay, when is this over? When does it end? When does it stop? And the answer is, you know, if someone's predicting the future more than 4 or 6 weeks in advance, a big red flag should go up, because the real answer is we don't really know. Like, we can make our best guesses, but like, come on, it's really hard to know. I think a reasonable, so having said all that, now I'm going to predict the future. But having said all that, I mean, it's not unreasonable to think that when enough people have immunity, or some immunity, it would be more accurate, to COVID-19, regardless of the variant, through either vaccination, recovery from infection, or both, and you have, you know, just a significant proportion of your population with some prior protection, when the next variant rolls through town, whatever that may be, and there will be one, you know, it just doesn't disrupt us as significantly as this has. And it just doesn't shut down Canadian society like it has in the past, because, you know, you still might get infected or reinfected, but you have some protection. Your immune system is primed to deal with this. And, you know, instead of getting really sick and landing in the hospital, you get mildly ill and recover with some chicken soup in the comfort of your own couch, or you don't get sick at all, or you have super mild symptoms and you don't even know you have it, because you go cough, I'm done, and move on with your life. So that's hopefully how this evolves. And, you know, eventually we'll probably see some seasonal variation in this as well. You know, seasons that drive people indoors, you'll see more of this, right? Like the fall and winter season, where we see our big spikes. Doesn't mean you can't get it other times of the year, but, you know, they'll probably, you know, with time, we'll probably see this move towards some more greater seasonal variation. Okay, it's 7:43. I'm going to stop. And again, I'm happy to chat, happy to take any questions. I've got to jump off around the 8 o'clock, 8:05 mark.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bogosh. I'll just start off with the first question. I have my hairstylist, I tried to make an appointment. She said, well, I'm closed because I have COVID, but I can make an appointment. My first thought was, like, I never want to have you cut my hair again. But how long, and then I said, well, wait a second. And I'm thinking, how long should I reasonably wait to have an appointment with her? And if I do, is she more likely to transmit something to me because she's had it?
So most people won't be contagious to others after about 10 days. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. It just means that most people won't be contagious to others after 10 days. You know, if you really want to play it safe, you can wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and like it would be extremely unusual for someone to be able to transmit the virus at that point in time. But by 10 days, the vast majority of people aren't really transmitting virus to others. It's not funny because if you keep swabbing people's noses, the PCR test can stay positive for weeks and weeks and weeks, but the virus really isn't viable or transmissible at that time. So that's why public health says wait for 10 days. But if you really want to be super, super, super duper, duper, duper careful, you'd wait a little bit longer than that.
Okay, thanks. By the way, a message here from one of our members, President of Oshawa, saying you make a great Rotarian. So you're welcome to join us anytime. Message from a note here from John Byard. How do you feel about the route Ontario's taking versus other jurisdictions, particularly with the shutdown of schools? And I see the story this morning that schools are actually going to open on Monday. Should kids be in school?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a huge fan of kids being in school for a million different reasons. Having said that, you can't ignore what's happening around you. And, you know, whilst kids tend to not get as sick compared to adults, they still can get sick and they can still land themselves in hospital. So, you know, obviously these are complex questions. In a perfect world, I think here's what we do. We use the week or two, or it's been 2 weeks in Ontario, to really improve the safety of the schools. Masks, ventilation, priority vaccination for everyone who's going to be under that roof, and then you send back to school. And with the acknowledgement that this isn't going to be perfect. It's not. It is not going to be perfect. Even in a world of unlimited resources, even in a perfect fairy tale world where everyone's got a mask glued to their face for every second of the day, you're still going to get transmission. You are still going to get transmission. But I think if you give people the choice and say, listen, here's a remote learning option. We appreciate that there's 14.5 million people in Ontario, you know, there's 2 million kids in school. Some might be at risk for severe infection. Some might go home to a family where a family member might be at risk for a severe infection. Going back to school is not going to be perfect for everybody, and give people the remote learning option for whatever reasons they may have, and then take it from there. And also be prepared to pivot. If things aren't working out, change. But I think in general, yes, kids in school, create safer schools. Looks like that's been done to some extent. It's still not perfect, and give people the option for remote learning or in school learning, and then go from there.
Thank you. Mary Lou, you have a question? Are you there?
I am
Mary
here,
Lou
Joe.
Harrison?
I am
Go ahead.
here. I'm here.
Go
So
ahead.
my question is about, are people who've been infected and recovered better protected than people who've been vaccinated? And what about the combination of vaccination and infection? Because I'm starting to hear, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't get any more vaccines. Maybe I should just let it take its course, get it, and I'll be better protected than the vaccinated. And I'd like to have something to say back.
Okay, so a couple of points. Number one, this is pre-Omicron, but there are multiple studies demonstrating that the vaccine provides better protection than recovery from infection. Okay. And just to get into a little more detail, I know we don't have a ton of time, but it is important. There was a really neat study that looked at who was hospitalized with COVID. And they looked at people who had a recent infection and who were recovered versus people who were vaccinated. Those are the two comparators. And the people who were recently infected and recovered, who got reinfected, were way more likely to land themselves in hospital compared to people who were hospitalized who had been vaccinated. Way more likely. There's multiple studies. I just like that one, but you can't ignore that you still have some immunity and some protection from recovery after infection, but the vaccination provides more significant and more robust protection. So that's the first point. The second point is if someone hasn't been infected or vaccinated, it's a horrible idea to go get themselves infected as a route to get protection. Like, that's a terrible idea, because it's not, you know, there's the virus can really, it's a bad idea. I hope I don't need to explain it. I could, but I hope I don't need to explain it. Don't. It's not smart. And then lastly, yeah, some people have been infected. Let's say someone has 2 doses of the vaccine and then they get an infection. Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to get an infection and we should avoid it, but we can't ignore that has boosting capacity and boosting capability. I would still go get that 3rd dose of the vaccine, but I'd probably wait a couple of months afterward, make sure the person's feeling better, and wait a couple of months afterward in terms of when to get that 3rd dose.
Karen, Dick, you have a question about continuing vaccinations?
Yes, so my question was around the need for a potential annual or more frequent vaccination as the variants progress, similar to how we have the flu shot. So right now we're at the 3rd shot for general population, moving to 4th for those most vulnerable. Do you foresee the need for an annual kind of booster shot?
Great point. So two answers here. Number one, the people who are getting so in adults, you need 3 doses of a vaccine. That's in adults, you need 3 doses of vaccine. The people who are getting a 4th dose now are people who are not mounting the same degree of an immune response to 3 doses. So their 4th dose will hopefully be the equivalent to your 3rd dose, right? These are elderly individuals who are in long-term care facilities. Like, their immune systems just don't work as well, unfortunately, in mounting an immune response to the vaccines. It's also for people who have underlying medical conditions, and there's a list of them, where you really don't mount a strong immune response. So the 4 doses for them is supposed to be equivalent to for the 3 doses for everyone else. So that's point 1. Point 2, while everyone needs 3 doses, at some point you should get your 3rd dose if you haven't. What do we do moving forward? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know if this is going to be an annual shot like the flu, like you point out, or maybe you need a shot every 2 or 3 years when another variant emerges, or maybe you don't need another shot anywhere. The point is, you have to address that in a science-based manner. You have to do the appropriate studies to get the high quality data to address that question. We can't just start giving out vaccines willy-nilly. So that's being addressed right now. That's the question that's being addressed right now. So we'll see. I don't have a good answer for you. My guess, we probably get a shot. Here's my guess. Like, don't hold me to this. I could be totally wrong, but you know, maybe we get another shot in the late summer or early fall. Maybe. Like, I have no idea. That would be my guess. And I reserve the right to change my mind in 5 minutes when I hear new data. I just don't know.
Question from Jean Kammermeyer about asthma, and I suppose it might apply to other pre-existing conditions as well. Jean, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm finding people around me with this new Omicron variant are a lot more sort of laid back, because I'm hearing a lot of quotes on quotes. It's not that severe. But given that my understanding is that it doesn't lodge as deeply in the lung as previous variants. So I'm imagining that it must affect the bronchioles more. And my concern is for people with asthma, children with asthma, and what is the data on how many of them do end up in hospital with it? And I'm just concerned for that.
Yeah, great point. So yeah, there's been now several studies, I think we're up to 6 now, that really demonstrate that this virus preferentially likes the throat, the back of the throat, and doesn't really get into the lungs as much. And that's why some people have said, look, it's mild. Look how mild it is with our ICUs overflowing. Look how mild it is with our hospitals overflowing. Like, again, perhaps milder compared to Delta, but not mild. Who's most at risk of getting who's most at risk of getting severe infections? It's those, and again, love and respect everyone. We should protect everybody, but it's people on the older end of the spectrum and people with underlying medical conditions. The same is true for kids. In general, kids tend to not get as sick, but if you look at which kids are more likely to get sick or have complications, it of course is kids with underlying medical conditions. Doesn't mean it can only happen to kids with underlying medical conditions. It just means it's more likely to happen with kids with underlying medical conditions. That's not an excuse to say, oh, it's okay, they had an underlying medical condition. No, of course not. But we've got to protect everybody, especially those with underlying medical conditions. We have seen this exacerbate asthma. I'm an adult infectious disease specialist, but I know my pediatric colleagues have seen that. We also have seen it exacerbate, some people on the call might have COPD or emphysema, and it can it can really push people to having an exacerbation of COPD. Some people have an abnormal heart rhythm. It can exacerbate that. So you can not only just have the direct effects of the virus on your body, but an infection can also exacerbate other underlying medical conditions, which puts people into hospital. That's true for both adults and for kids.
Question from Doug Sears from our own club, and it's about something you've been writing about a lot, hospitalizations and how we deal with the numbers. Doug?
I was just wondering if we're going to see tracking or reporting that separate hospitalization numbers because of COVID compared to people in hospital for other reasons that then subsequently test positive. Just to differentiate, what's the driving force for people going into hospital?
Right. So yes, they're going to try separate that, but there's four different categories. People who get sick with COVID and come into hospital because COVID made them sick and they're there for COVID. People who got a COVID infection, but it exacerbated one of their underlying medical conditions. So you're admitted with a COPD exacerbation or with a worsening heart failure, but that was completely, or fell and hit your head, but that was completely driven by your COVID infection. People who have been admitted to hospital who have a totally different issue. You broke your ankle on your trampoline or something like that, because people are on their trampoline now in January. And we swabbed you and you have COVID, a totally incidental finding of COVID. And then people who are in hospital who don't have COVID, but got COVID in hospital. This group is already being documented. We know that. The hospital outbreaks are well documented. This group is well documented, people who come in with COVID. And now what we're trying to do is at least tease apart non-COVID related admissions who test positive for COVID. Easy to say when you're looking at a spreadsheet. When you're in the trenches, it's actually it's not so black and white. It's not so black and white. And this with COVID or because of COVID or from COVID, it also kind of breaks down when you realize that, holy shit, there's so many people in hospital now. Like, the point is, sorry, pardon the language, but the point is, there's a lot of people in hospital, regardless of what they're there for. We don't have enough staff to care for them, COVID or not. Yes, I agree. It's helpful information, but it's messier than what people might think. And the real issue is many people in hospital, not enough staff to care for them. COVID is a driving feature on many, maybe not all, but many of them. Like, it's not every day that, pick a number, 30%, 20%, 40% of your admissions are related to one underlying condition. Like, that's a problem. Like, that's a real problem. Imagine if it was like, I don't know, pick any other medical condition. There was an epidemic of atrial fibrillation and abnormal heart rhythm, and 30% of your admissions were related to atrial fibrillation. Like, a huge red flag would go up. So, that's not the best example. So I kind of want to walk that back, but I think you get the point. We're stretched. It's important to tease this apart. Yes, COVID is a ton of admissions. Some people are admitted with or from, but it almost becomes an irrelevant conversation when we're already stretched.
I know that your time is tight. Maybe time for a couple more. I don't know. But I have a question here. I'm just going to paraphrase it. Talking about early treatments, I know that Donald Trump was touting one treatment that turned out not to be a panacea or not to be effective at all.
Is
and it's
that
a
the
non-effective.
ultraviolet light or the
Well,
bleach?
yeah, yeah,
I'm
maybe it was
joking,
the
I'm joking,
flushing,
I'm
the
joking.
putting the stuff in your veins. I don't know. Anyway, the question is about early treatments. Where are we right now with treatments? I know that the US has approved a treatment. Where are we here with that, and what's on the horizon?
Okay, this is molasses. I think this is the last question I can answer, unfortunately, but this is a great one. Early treatments would be very, very helpful. Be careful when people say the words game changer or silver bullet, right? There aren't any. These are all helpful additive tools. Nothing is going to make this go away. Remember, rapid tests were a game changer. Your masks were a game changer. HEPA filters were a game changer. There's no game changers. This just all adds additional incremental levels of protection to the individual, an additional incremental level of protection to society, and alleviating healthcare pressure. So where are we at? Currently, from the science and medicine standpoint, yeah, there's a few really promising drugs that really aim to reduce the risk of severe outcomes. You've got to start them early. They're probably most bang for their buck in people who are at risk of severe illness. So like if you're a healthy 20-year-old who gets COVID, you wouldn't want to use this. You'd use it for people with risk factors, age, underlying medical comorbidities. And if you start these drugs early enough, what they do is they reduce your risk for hospitalization and they reduce your risk for death. The one from Pfizer, it's called Paxlovid, looks like it has probably the best data, although we don't have a ton of data transparency. There's another one from Merck called Molnupiravir, which might also help as well. There's an antidepressant medication, which might also help as well. Again, nothing is perfect. There's drug interactions, there's side effects, but again, it's helpful, and we could really use it. They're still with Health Canada, and hopefully we get the green light and they bought this, so we'll have access to them. My prediction is they're not going to help with this wave. This wave will be receding, and long since receding before, or maybe even receded before we actually start to get access to these, right? It's one thing for Health Canada to approve it. It's another thing for them to get the drugs in the country, for them to distribute them, for them to come up with plans and stuff like that. Even if that takes 3 or 4 weeks, which will take longer than that, like I think we'll be on this trajectory with the Omicron wave. So helpful for the future, but probably not going to help us anytime in the immediate future.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I know your time is limited, and I just have one parting question for you. How do you keep your own mental health when you think about this stuff 16, 18, 20 hours a day?
Chicken wings and Lagavulin. No.
Okay. No, seriously, because there's so much, everyone's so stressed. I mean, but
Yeah.
you deal with this like the
You know
whole
what?
day. How
In
do you
all
do it?
fairness, a couple of things. One, I carve out meaningful time with my family every single day. It's not perfect, but like something better be really important to get between that 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. time slot. That's bedtime, bath time, homework time, run around outside time, be on our bikes, try do family dinner. Like and again, I'm not perfect, but I really chisel out as much of that time as possible. I've got 2 little kids and a wife, and I really try to do as much family time as possible. Number 2, I exercise regularly. And no matter what, good day, bad day, doesn't matter. Sometimes it's 11:30 at night. I'll still go for a jog. Like I really try and get regular exercise. Third thing is I go outside. I really try and go outside. I don't care if it's plus 40 or minus 40. I get outside, and I try to get outside every single day, regardless. Fourth thing is I try to keep in touch with people socially. Yeah, even in the worst of the lockdown when you're working 1,000 hours a day, I still would always make time and squeeze it in. Even on the drive home from work, there's 15 minutes right there. Call a friend, call family, and connect socially. Those would be the 4 big ones. And 5, you know what? Like again, I treat myself, with silly treats. Like, sometimes I wasn't joking. Like, listen, I'm not saying this is going to come out wrong. It's okay to have like, a beverage where, obviously don't have too much, everything in moderation. But like, you know what? When I'm jumping on a meeting at 11:30 at night, and I've been working all day, yeah, I'll pour a nice glass of scotch and sip it, or have a beer and sip it. And it's nice. Like I enjoy it. It's great. Again, not saying if you have people, I appreciate that there's serious issues with alcohol and drugs and people need help, go get help. But it's also okay to have a drink now and again. And I do enjoy that. Same with like, you know, I really eat healthy and I eat well and I exercise. But on the other hand, like, you know, sometimes at 11:30 at night, you just need some chicken wings and you just go boop and they land on your doorstep. That's wonderful. So that also helps. You know, you can't, you know, we're not perfect. And yeah, I think that that really does contribute to good mental health. But again, everything in moderation. That's what I've been doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I speak for everybody in thanking you and for coming in, and this the Rotary silent clap on Zoom. Thank you so much.
Be well, everyone. Have a wonderful day. It's lovely to chat, and I really hope everyone's well, and I hope your families are well too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you so much. What a just a normal guy. Like, great, phenomenal. So lovely to see so many people here this morning. I can see the numbers might drop a little bit now, but we are going to continue with the rest of our Rotary meeting. So those of you who are guests, if you want to stick around, more than welcome. If you've had what you came for and you need to drop off, absolutely understand that too. But I did skip over birthdays and anniversaries first thing this morning because I wanted to make sure we had enough, we got as much time with Dr. Bogosh as we could. Sadly, there are no birthdays or anniversaries, so I really had nothing to skip over. So
Amy,
yes.
I just want to apologize to everyone whose questions we didn't get to. We had so many questions, and I have apologies to all the people we didn't get to.
We did what we could with the time that we had. So yeah, and I think he was great. You know, informative at the beginning. So yeah, fantastic. Okay, so do we have any happy bucks? Gail, I see you.
Well, I didn't want to say this when Dr. Bogosh was there, but I had, my son was here on Christmas Day, had COVID, didn't know it, gave it to my partner. I had 3 boosts. I lived in a house with a guy who had, and I never even got a runny nose. Thank you, booster shot. I'll put $5 in for that one.
I guess.
Yeah, I have a happy buck. It's just a shout out to, I was hoping Christine Langdon would be on the call. Shout out to the people at Glen Hill Strathaven, where they're dealing with their own set of concerns, and staffing levels are very low at the long-term care home. And but they soldier on, they do their best, and they are, whatever words you want to use, heroes is a good one. But once again, they're doing their best to keep everyone safe, and they don't have enough rapid tests now. And so, you know, I fear, but I also am thankful that my mother and the other loved ones of people are in a home where they're doing everything they can to keep them safe.
It's a tough time.
So I have Amy, I have a happy buck.
Gotcha.
Well, kind of a happy buck. Just a bit of an update for the group on Bob. He unfortunately ended up in the hospital. He had pneumonia, and so he was in for about 7 days. But thankfully, he is home now and recovering well.
Good news. I was thinking about him yesterday as my daughter was puzzling. John?
Yeah, I got 5 happy bucks. Happy to hear what Doug just said. And for the information of anyone who doesn't know, Bob Stevens, member of our club, past president, and he is a Rotarian of some 71 or 72 years. So I'm happy to hear that Bob is okay. Thanks, Doug.
Good. I'll have a couple of happy bucks because I heard the kids are going back to school. I know it may not be perfect, but it'll at least get them out of their bedrooms. All right. So moving along, Denis, do you have a report for us this morning?
I do. And also, it also links to Bob Stevens again. I just want to touch base in terms of community, the Bowmanville Tennis Club, which was founded 75 years ago in last year, was the 75th anniversary of the founding of the club. And again, it's a community at work. Way back when, Bob Stevens, Al Strike, Chuck Catherine, and there are a few others whose name slips my mind, but I know Bob Stevens, of course, we just talked about. Chuck Catherine's a longtime member of our Rotary Club, as well. Al Strike was before he passed away. So they decided that Bowmanville at the time needed a tennis club. So they approached the Lions Club, who owned the building that is now the Bowmanville Older Adult Association. So they approached them and said, hey, you've got some spare land. Would you lease us some land? We'd like to build a tennis club. And they had for years a handshake lease with the Lions Club for $1 a year. And so Bob and the boys literally built the tennis club, went out, brought in clay, took out a bank loan. I believe it was a bank loan to put up the fencing that was required, the nets, and the posts. So there we go. And the club has been in existence ever since. I took over as president 3 years ago, and I'm quite pleased to say that a very hardworking board of directors has brought the club up into what you might say the 21st century. We used to book courts. If you wanted to reserve a court, you went over to the courts, and there was a book, and you put your name in for whatever time. Today, it's all done electronically and on the internet, and club activity has increased by about 40%. So during COVID, I took over just about as we hit COVID, and our membership went from about 75 adults down to about 55, some who actually paid their membership but did not come out to play. And one thing about tennis is you do have social distancing by virtue of how it's played. And we survived the first year, and this year in 2021, we were able to introduce a junior program that lasted for about 6 weeks. And this year we're hoping that it will be for the full summer. All that said, the courts have been resurfaced again. We're looking to come back to our 75, on average, 75 adult members. And thanks to the work done in the past by people like Bob Stevens, there is a very active club in cooperation with the town, because the BOAA is now the resident along with us, and the town owns the land. So we are tenants of Clarington, which means we pay taxes, and we also pay a lease, which is a very fair lease, I might add. They were very fair about setting it up. So there we are. And hopefully if you have young children, they should come out and join the junior program. Go on our webpage, and you'll see what it's all about. And tennis is a game for life. Joe.
Yeah, you had talked, I've spoken to you about this before. Can you talk about the benefits of tennis as an exercise? You're a firm believer in the benefits of exercise for mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I agree fully with Dr. Bogosh, who spoke earlier, that exercise is extremely important. And the thing about tennis, and I'm a bit biased, of course, because I'm a tennis player, is that one, it's a game for life. I mean, I had the pleasure of, over the years, of playing against members significantly older than me who were very, very active on the court. And I think part of that is strictly going out and playing the game. Now, there's a social aspect to it, of course, because you're meeting friends. Competitive, you can be as competitive as you want. Some must win the game and must be at the top of the tennis ladder, and that's fair. And it's also because 85, I would say 90% of tennis is played in doubles format. So as opposed to singles. So and certainly for me personally, the ability to go out during the COVID lockdowns and even go out and practice on my own was to get out and get some exercise, fresh air. I think it contributed a lot, and most members found that, it helped with controlling all the stress that we're all going through at this point. And the players, I think, really felt that was any exercise, and tennis is one that's very good.
Dennis, it's Rachel. Do they do tennis lessons? Because I had tennis lessons when I was young and I was absolutely terrible. So I never ever wanted to do it again. But as an adult, do they have lessons for someone like me who's hopeless and may have a chance of playing tennis one day?
I've been taking lessons for years and I'm still hopeless, so there is hope. Yes, one of the things that we did, we have a formal tennis pro. That is a person who actually teaches it for a living. I do volunteer coaching, but it boils down to I'll show you what I do, just don't do it. And you'll be a very good player. Yes, there is adult lessons and adult clinics. And this year we're hoping to have beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
Oh, good. Fun.
Yeah, and it's the cheapest club in Durham region. It's a one-time fee. I forgot to mention that. And we have no court fees. So once you've paid your membership, you can play as often as you want. There are no court charges. A lot of clubs have it. It's more the traditional method. But for our club, we've maintained that no court fees.
Dennis, the youth program you have, what ages is that?
It's broken down into 2 age groups. It's mixed, girls, boys, 6 to 10 and 10 to 16. And it's a junior program, so the membership is at a lower cost. And I believe the board has suggested that you do not have to be a member to take, for the juniors, you do not have to be a member to participate in the junior program.
Good to know.
Yeah. And that is every tennis club, the junior program, that is the youth program, is what drives the club in terms of both revenue and obviously future adult members, because they learn to play the game.
Do we have any other questions for Dennis? Perfect. Well, thanks very much, Dennis.
You're very welcome.
Announcements. Do we have, we did get a note yesterday from Major Ken Ritson. I know, Roy, you're on the call. A couple of us did some kettles for a day, and the kettles that we had been requested to look after raised $906. So they sent us our totals. So that was fun. Ted, do we have tree numbers yet? Ted Watson?
Tree numbers are used. You're saying the number of trees we sold?
No, I'm thinking more of the money we made.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear from Fred to confirm everything, but we're just a little over 40,000. And
excellent. Doesn't have to be. Oh, Rachel, did you raise your hand again, or was that the no? Okay, Ferd, you raised your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm Ferd Longo. I'm president for the Curtis Rotary Club. And I just want to thank Bowmanville Rotary for serving as our sponsor back 20 years ago this year. It's an important milestone for our club. I want to thank Bowmanville Rotary. Denis talked about the guidance that they had, the Bowmanville Rotarians with the Bowmanville Tennis Club. I just want to say, thank you to Bowmanville for having the initiative to create the club in Curtis, to stand by us, to support us through some of our rough patches. I see Wayne Routley on the call, who's one of our Curtis Rotarians early on. Hi, Wayne. Want to thank Pauline Moat publicly, for everything that she did for us as our guiding Rotarian from the outset, and she continues to come out and support us on a regular basis. So I just want to acknowledge and send a big thank you a lot of hugs, a lot of kisses to everybody, and thank you for the invitation, both to you, Madam President, and to Joe for sending it to us so that I can inform my fellow Rotarians. So thank you. And in pure symbolism, I'll send an e-transfer to you, Madam President, for $20 for the 20 years that we've been involved. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Ferd. And for those of you who wonder, Pauline Moat is Pauline Calvert. So
she'll always be Pauline Moat to me. No offense, John. Okay, mute.
Yeah. I also want to remind our board that we do have a board meeting tomorrow night. Looks like it could be a quick one, which is good. So if I haven't seen many reports coming in, so that's okay. Does anybody else have any announcements from our club? No? No. Okay,
Sure.
thanks again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll just,
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
one last thing. Yeah, you know, I know, I gotta say this, you know, I know that people don't like, you know, there were probably some groans when I booked Dr. Bogosh going, oh no, more COVID. But, you know, I think people here still, who are still on the line, or still on the call can, you know, there is also a school of thought saying the more information we have, the better it is, you know, and so I just had to say that. And so for people who thought it was gloom and doom to do something more on COVID, I apologize, but I think that the more information we have, the better we are.
No, I think one of the comments summed it up too. I don't know if you saw the comment from Jean. It was like, she's like, it's like having the CBC in my own living room. Like Dr. Bogosh is he's just so down to earth and just makes it, you know, real. And no, congratulations on being able to get him, Joe. I think it was, and obviously there were 73 people on our call this morning. So yeah. All right, if there's no, okay, I believe that John, you are sharing Tim's quote with us this morning?
Yep, that's correct. And the quote is actually from Franklin D. Roosevelt. It's as follows: I see 1/3 of a nation, ill-housed, ill-clad, and ill-nourished. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Very good. So that came from Tim Function, who couldn't be with us. He's driving somewhere. Yeah, so, and thanks again to everybody who joined us from other clubs, and we had a good turnout of our own Bowmanville people. So if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, then we will call this meeting adjourned. And I don't think I'll see 73 of you next week, but I look forward to seeing a lot of you again.